Hello and welcome to the Healthtech Marketing Show. I'm your host, Adam Chirinas from Health Launchpad. I want to give a big thank you to our partners from HIMSS for your long-time sponsorship of this show. This is, I think, going to be episode 73 and the first episode of 2025, and lots more to come in 2025. So this is an episode that I think is the best way for us to be starting off 2025, which is we're going to be talking about the challenges, the top 5 challenges that health tech marketers say that they're facing. And we're going to be talking to 2 fantastic health tech marketing leaders about their perspectives on these challenges and how they're going to be tackling them. Now, you can wonder, it's like, well, you know, where did you guys at Health Launchpad and, you know, your little community here how did you come up with these top 5 things? So we have a community of marketing leaders. It's called the Healthtech Marketing Network. There are about 200 CMOs, VPs, and directors of marketing that meet together monthly and talk about particular topics. What we've done is we've taken a year's worth of recordings and synthesized this into the forward-looking issues. So what we're going to be talking about are the top 5 issues that come out of all the conversations from 2024 that look to the future. And these are the big priorities that we believe marketers are focused on. And to help me in this discussion, we have Mr. Michael Passanante, who is the Senior Vice President of Marketing of CapitalRx, and Stacy Sand, who welcome back to the show. I think you've been on a couple of times, actually. Stacy is the Head of Marketing, VP of Marketing for GetWell. And so welcome to the show. Why don't we just have you guys introduce yourself? Michael first, then Stacy.
Sure. Happy to be on the show with you, Adam and Stacy. It's a pleasure. So as you mentioned, I'm Michael Passanante. I'm the Senior Vice President of Marketing at CapitalRx. Been in healthcare and life sciences for a shade over 20 years now, which is hard to believe. You know, came up through the marketing ranks, worked a little bit in sales, worked a little bit in product, all around sort of the commercial wheel, and currently overseeing the marketing function there at Capital, which includes not only our product and demand generation activities, but as our communications, media relations, creative services, and revenue operations as well.
What does CapitalRx do?
So we are a full service pharmacy benefit manager and pharmacy benefit administrator. So we provide pharmacy benefits to employers of all sizes across the country, as well as through our enterprise health platform, Judy, an infrastructure, claims infrastructure for leading health plans.
Got it. Very crisp. Stacy.
Hi. Well, nice to be back and great to have this conversation with you and Michael. So I do run marketing and communications at GetWell. We're a digital patient engagement company servicing hospitals, health plans, meeting patients out in the community where they are. And similar to Michael, I've been in healthcare in both product development, biz dev, and marketing roles for the last 20 years. Hard to even believe that. The time has flown by. And today, the role that I hold, it oversees a very full service marketing team. So we have product marketing, demand generation, outbound marketing, as well as branded communications. So excited to talk about all these things. You know, the priorities for next year are always changing as technology changes, as the healthcare market changes. So sure, it's going to be a lively year, just like 2024 was.
I expect so too. All right, let's get into it. So drum roll. Issue number 1, measuring marketing impact and ROI. So what we heard from the community in 2024 is that marketing ROI measurement has evolved beyond traditional tracking measures, particularly volume-based tracking measures. And what's driving this is that buyer behavior is changing, and the measures that have been used historically, just that are sort of more demand generation oriented, just don't work as well. And many companies are actually struggling with this issue, particularly the issues around attribution. And I think, you know, we saw this issue in 22 and 23. bubble up, probably might have made the top 5. But in 2024, it was the number one issue. And so going into 2025, we believe it's the number one issue facing marketers. So, let's hear what you have to say about that. So, Stacy, tell us a little bit about how you measure ROI and how you see it's been changing in your organization.
So you hit it on the head. There are a lot of vanity metrics that have been out there in marketing for decades, things like traffic and MQLs and things that really scratch the surface of the impact to both pipeline revenue and really retention as well. So one thing that we are tracking newly this year is we used to just track the top of funnel metrics. So MQLs that turned into meetings, that turned into qualified pipeline where we have dollars. Now we've added another layer of tracking and we're doing full funnel tracking all the way down to booking. So a closed won opportunity. And we are tracking the lead source throughout. The other thing we're tracking more closely now is velocity. So we have really investigated how long does it take for an MQL to turn into a meeting? Where are the stuck points in the pipeline? We have a pipeline health dashboard that is new this year. And it's not meant to shine a light on, sales rep behavior activity. It's really genuinely trying to find where and what stages do we tend to get stalled. You're going to, we talk about long sales cycles in healthcare tech. That is absolutely the case. Could be anywhere from, 9 months to 2 years or even longer. I know both of us have probably seen deals that have dragged on, but usually we don't diagnose at scale what is holding back velocity. So I would say those are two things that we're implementing this year going into next year's reporting is full funnel tracking of lead source all the way down to closed won and seeing not just what converts to top of funnel, but what goes the distance. And number 2, how are we helping to unstick stale ops and aging pipeline?
That's very helpful. Michael, how about in your organization?
Yeah, I think, what we've tried to do is move away from the hamster wheel of MQL funnel. That just doesn't work very well. Similar to what Stacy said, we have long sales cycles. What is a little bit different on our side of the house is they are somewhat prescribed. Companies buy their pharmacy benefits usually every 3 years. They do it in a cycle. They do it through brokers. They do it through an RFP. So there is a finality to it. It doesn't drag on forever. You will know your winners and losers usually by October most of the time in our business, unless you're selling to a health plan, which could go. That's a whole different animal. But what we have found is that because of the disambiguation between us and the end client, having that channel in the middle, the traditional, hey, this is the lead source and we're just going to push them through to a salesperson and through the funnel doesn't work very well in our context. But what does work very well is understanding how much and how often they engage with us as a buying committee through their experience with us, not only prior to becoming, part of an RFP, but also very much during that opportunity and then afterwards as well. And so, we've spent a lot of time wiring up our tech stack to track all manner of touch points, whether they're coming to a webinar, meeting us at an event, visiting our website, you name it, engaging with us on social, whatever the case might be, and getting that all down to the contact level and then ultimately rolled up to the account level. So ultimately what that delivers for us, and it's a bit long tail, but we can see the attribution of various marketing touch points all the way through the funnel to a closed sale. And that's what we look at as that marketing influence and how that affects our overall business. Now, that doesn't stop you from wanting to report things out that are quicker. And so we, and this will go into some comments I think we'll get into later on. You can't underestimate brand in all of this, right? Performance marketing is a thing. But because buyers are out there searching on their own and talking to their peers and other influencers in the marketplace, you cannot underestimate what you're doing in brand. And so we want to understand how our brand is being perceived in the marketplace. And you pick a few things. For us, we look at our LinkedIn follower growth. We look at certain measures coming in through our website. I mean, there are certain things that you pick and say, if those are growing, that means our content program is working, and the things that we want to happen are going to ultimately happen, and they're going to start to blossom. And so that's been a winner for us too.
I love that proxy of using LinkedIn engagement and LinkedIn followers as a proxy rather for brand awareness and brand familiarity. I don't think it bubbles to a top issue yet, but I think something that we're hearing a lot is it feels like brand is coming back, just going to have its day again. It's almost been a dirty word for a few years, and brand awareness is everybody's realizing you really do need to build brand awareness and familiarity, and not just focus on lead generation.
So Adam, I think to just tag on that, in health tech, you see so much M&A activity. I come from the patient education space prior to GetWell, and that has consolidated significantly over the last 5 years. So these companies are in a constant state of rebranding, reintroducing their brand, introducing their brand to a new market segment. Like, let's say they've been selling to health systems and now they want to go into the health plan space. So I've seen the importance of brand work really skyrocket over the last few years in the last few companies that I've worked for. But I agree with Michael and with you, the metrics that are both, there's two sets of metrics, right, with brand. There's what you would consider a real barometer of brand sentiment and equity out there. And then there's what your leaders believe are signals of brand equity and your brand being out there. So I think as marketing leaders, we're always trying to toggle both, is, really understand the brand metrics that matter from the consumer and the customer's point of view, but then also being able to share things upward and across your organization that give confidence that our brand work is working.
And I'll qualify that and say, why do we follow, in our case, LinkedIn followers? It's not just because we do that. It's because we put a tremendous amount of effort and time in content development, in employee advocacy. That is an initiative we identified as something that's important to us because we believe that's where our buyers are. So it isn't just, hey, we're doing well if we see a lot of followers show up. We expect the followers to come because we're leading them there, right? It's a strategy. It's not just a thing.
Right. Yes. It's organic. You're getting an organic following, and that's because of everything else that you're doing. Okay, let's move on to issue number 2. So issue number 2 is aligning sales and marketing. So 2024, there was a ton of turmoil in the ranks of healthcare IT marketing. It was really sad to see a lot of friends in the Healthtech marketing network lose their jobs. Fortunate to see some getting back into work, but it was a pretty rough year. And the other thing that seems to have happened is, as part of this, is a consolidation of marketing moving under sales in many organizations. Not for everybody, but in many organizations, particularly, say, CMOs now report in some cases up to the chief revenue officer or chief growth officer. And that, what gets me thinking is maybe that'll actually help address one of the age-old problems, which is sales and marketing alignment, because they're all part of the same organization. Michael, how are you guys organized in terms of marketing and sales, and what are some of the issues that you face around that alignment?
Yeah, so I actually do report to the chief commercial officer in my role. So the idea of the one team, one dream is a thing for us. We have sales, we have implementation, and marketing under one roof. So it's, getting the clients in and making sure that they are implemented correctly is all part of the mandate of the chief commercial officer. I will say, prior to this, I've never worked for a sales lead in my career. And that was a very intentional thing, because between us in this community, sales people and sales leaders are wired a little differently, right? Typically, they see the world differently. They have a different set of priorities, understandably. And prior to coming here, I actually held a CRO type role where I had sales and account management and marketing reporting up to me. So I saw that happen, and I saw what could happen. And so, when I came to Capital and I met my my future boss, we had some very candid discussions around how that would look and what they were trying to achieve. And, that one team, one dream mentality was a thing. It wasn't like, well, marketing just kind of reports in and does our sell sheets. It was, we want to do something here where we see the continuity from marketing leading into sales and eventually close business. And so that was very much a part of the discussion and very much a part of what led me into this particular organization at this time. And I will say for us, it's worked. We've, for the 2 years that I've been there, 2 full years that we've been there, we're hitting goal and exceeding goal on sales. And I think partnership between sales and marketing is probably the best situation I've personally been in, as far as the sales team understanding and appreciating the value that marketing brings, and marketing understanding what sales has to deal with on a daily basis, and what we can be doing to help them do their job better. So there's very good and candid conversations and a lot of communication. So it can work. I would just say, where it can fall down is if you are a CEO and you just hire a CEO and you just hire a CRO to be the top salesperson, you're probably not going to get what you want. You need to hire someone that's going to be a CRO, a chief commercial officer, who understands all of the functions that go into commercial.
Can you, the notion of a chief commercial officer is not that common, I think, in healthcare technology. It is in other, particularly the sort of big venture-backed SaaS world. What is it? What's underneath a chief commercial officer?
In our organization, it's sales, it's marketing, and it is our implementation group, which essentially ensures that clients,
so customer success as well. Yeah, got it.
Yeah, they're onboarding. And then we have a separate account management group that handles them on an ongoing basis.
Yeah,
that's under a different a different executive. But yeah, that's how we have it organized.
And what about product?
Product is its own entity as well. Product comes up through our technology organization.
Stacy, how about you?
Similar to Michael, I do report to our chief commercial officer. I've done that here and at my previous company. And it's interesting, we were just talking about this last night, is depending on the size of the company, I've been in different models where I've been straight up through a chief experience officer at one point, where that was marketing and client success and support and implementation, but sales still remained under a sales leader. And I've now worked in smaller companies where it is a blended approach. The commercial business is really everything you're touching the customer with, from a pre-sale, point of sale, after retention, loyalty, et cetera. So, there's pros and cons to both. I think the benefit of being in a role where we are reporting into sales leadership is that we share some priorities around use of technology. And that goes 2 ways. So I adopted ABM platforms in my current company. And, you have to work with sales to make ABM successful. And I think what we've been able to do is really help the sales teams, especially our field outside sales teams, understand that surround sound helps them. Right? This idea of surrounding the customer with our messaging through different voices, different channels. The buying committee is anytime between 6 and 12 people. There's no way they can scale themselves to deeply influence all of those people across however many accounts that they own. So that's been a big win, is coming in and telling them the purpose of ABM is not to create a lot more touch points. It is to help you amplify yourself through all the channels. I think the other thing that has helped us is helping them understand what a target account is. So, not every account is sales ready, not every lead is sales ready. So helping to co-define what a target account is and doing segmentation together. I've been in companies where product marketing is off doing segmentation. It's not informed by sales. And then you bring the segments to sales and they go, nope, that's not it. On the other side, they have taught me that we need to feed their ecosystem. So the more we can keep them in their CRM as not just the client database of record, but really the commercial database of record. So we have now worked really hard this year to make sure our marketing stack is integrated into Salesforce so that they are using one login. And when they're doing account planning in Salesforce, all of those surrounding tools, intent data, sales enablement, those things are actually fed into Salesforce instead of having 5 more things that marketing's asking them to log into. So, I really encourage folks listening to think about, as you sign up more tech, it's very tempting to just load up the tech stack. If you're not putting it into the workflow of your salespeople, that alignment is very difficult to drive.
So the key takeaway for me here is the notion of one team, one dream, and it can work really well. But it seems like it works really well if sales and marketing are working together around a common purpose, organized around accounts and how the accounts buy, and working and everything's seen, it works. You're trying to get everything working as seamlessly around that as possible: tech stack, operations, workflows, etc. All right, let's move on to issue number 3, because I think it's actually follows on very nicely from it. So issue number 3 is adapting to evolving buyer behavior. So there is a ton of new research that has come out in the last year. In fact, there's a whole bunch that's come out this month. So over the last year, we started off the year, we did a fantastic survey with HIMSS called the HIT Buyer Survey. Our friends at Sixth Sense did an amazing B2B study on buyer behavior. And then just in the last week, ITSMA's done their annual report on ABM, which has got a lot about buyer journey. And Bain has published a new study as well. There's some consistent themes here. And that is that buying behavior is not making it any easier for marketers to engage for them. If anything, it's making it a lot harder. And so I'm curious, what are you seeing in terms of a change in buyer behavior, and how are you adapting to it? And what are you going to do differently in 2025? Stacy, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I think, as I mentioned for the buying committee, it has grown, it has ballooned. And this year we felt like we didn't fully understand the relationships between the people on those buying committees. The larger the buying committee, often the longer your deal is going to take. So that's why when we go back to account-based marketing, you have to look across the buying committee and say, where do we have champions? Where do we have neutrals? Where do we have potential detractors or killers of a deal? One thing we've done is we've worked with some market research firms out there to get briefings on the role of the CIO, the role of informatics leaders. How do they all work together? What's the reporting structure? Who has wallet and who has decision-making authority? And this has helped us better position. So it creates more positioning that you have to do, because now you're not positioning for just a clinical buyer or a technical buyer. You're like, oh, wow, there's all these pockets of buyers that sit either underneath a technical buyer or a clinical buyer, or are the liaison between the clinical and the technical buyers. Informatics is a good example of that. So we've done a little bit more back to basics training on understanding the org chart nowadays. With that, we can say, all right, well, we need to make sure we have relationships with all these folks. Otherwise, we're relying on one champion to go and sell us internally to the others. So it's not necessarily like a technical or a tactical thing. It was really going back to basics and saying, who is our buyer at large? Are they peers? Are they direct reports? And then the other thing that we have looked at is where we have aging pipeline, diagnosing why. Sometimes it's turnover. Healthcare organizations you see every week in like Becker's and all these other outlets are covering CEO exits, CFO exits, people at the top churning constantly. That sets you back time-wise. You may have a deal that's very, deep in the journey or in the stages. But when your champion leaves, it is like putting the brakes on. So, helping understand the causes of those long drawn out sales cycles, I think helps us understand where we can make an impact to increase velocity.
Michael? Sure. Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything Stacy said. I think as we scale, we're 7 years old, right? So you start out in a situation where people are leveraging their relationships. And then you're bringing on reps that are second generation, third generation. You're creating new relationships. You're trying things. And it takes a lot of momentum to move things forward. And when you can start to show, and it takes a little while, that look, this customer that you've just closed with, they've been kicking the tires for like a year. Maybe you weren't paying attention to that or didn't know it, but they've been, hitting the website, attending the webinars, doing all of these things that, helped to enable, didn't close it. You closed it, but it helped to move it along. And as Stacy mentioned, the buyer committees are getting bigger. It's getting harder to sell. One of the things we're really focused on heading into next year is creating the stories that help our champions sell internally. That is something we need to pay more attention to, because it's not just the HR team that says, yes, we're going to go with you. It's, you're going to be our PBM next year. They're going to have to talk to finance. They're going to have to talk to CEO, COO, who knows who else, maybe the board. It could be, a wide variety of stakeholders, and they have to be able to tell our unique story, because oftentimes status quo, as it is often is the case, is the biggest enemy. And so if you're going to move them off the dime, you need to be able to portray your story very well within those organizations. And so we're paying a lot more attention to those personas, trying to understand more about what they need to hear, what's going to motivate them, and then how we can help our champions sell better internally.
So what I'm taking away is the way that you adapt to the buying journey is by focusing on the buying group. So it's not just adapting to the buyer journey, it's adapting to the buying group and how they're structured and how they operate, and getting as detailed as you can for each account. And then doing then doubling down and focusing on the champion. If you can identify the champion, what's going to enable the champion to be the best salesperson for your company within their own organization. Very helpful. Very, very helpful advice. Let's talk about budget. So issue number 4 is navigating budget constraints. So last year was a very rough year. Many layoffs, budget cuts. I think towards the end of the year, we heard mixed signals. So I'm not really clear whether budgets are going to be up in 2025 for many companies, whether they're going to be down, or is flat the new up. And so I'm curious to know, what you're seeing from a budget. I don't expect you to reveal, too much detail about that. But what I'm curious about is that what are you, given, the financial constraints you're under, how are you operating differently in 2025? Michael, do you want to go first?
Sure. I will say we're in the fortunate position that we're still on a very strong growth arc, and so budget cuts haven't been part of the discussion for us, which is great. But that said, they haven't exactly said, let's triple your budget either, right? So, you're working to manage a business and be a profitable business, and that's what we want to do. And so, it's always about looking at what we could be scaling. What could we be doing better? What could we not be doing that we're currently doing? And I think, that's just sort of age-old wisdom. But it still works in the current context. You need to find ways to squeeze more out of what you've got. I think we're very fortunate in this day and age. You can do that, and you can do that with low cost in many situations. We're on a podcast here today. How many ways do you use that? Right.
Oh my goodness.
How many ways could you use that? Right. We have a podcast as well. Right.
Yeah.
And we use it a lot of different ways. So that's how you start to get around that problem, I think, is you say, what are we going to center up on? And then how do we stretch that and make the most of it to achieve the goal that we're after? And that may be a long stretch, or it might be a short stretch, depending on your situation. But there's a lot available to us, even without tremendous cost, that can go a very long way. And I think you just have to be pretty crafty about how you employ those tactics.
Within your, typically within the budgets have 4 corners to them, right? People, programs, technologies, and outside agencies and consultants and that sort of thing. Is that mix changing for you at all? Are you spending more on technology, less on technology? I mean, you guys seem to be big ABM, seem to be, big users of ABM.
Yeah, I'd say the technology spend is increasing. I mean, that's a part of it. I feel pretty good about where our particular tech stack is now, although we're nipping around the edges and adding some things. We'll probably add a couple of more heads, and we're probably going to spend, frankly, a little bit more on media than we have in the past. We've like Stacy, have done some research. You have to continue to challenge your own assumptions about what the market's doing and where they live and what's important to them. And I think we found out some pretty interesting things in 24 about that. And we're going to use, some of those program dollars to experiment and see if we can't move things in areas that we haven't previously tried.
Would you those media dollars and program dollars mix of awareness versus demand? I mean, how do you see that allocation?
Yeah, great question. I would say it's, probably equally weighted to a certain extent. But I mean, honestly, I don't see a situation where we're going to just have our logo plastered in a lot of places, right? Particularly if it's digital, we're going to have some throughput. That said, we are sponsors of the New York City Football Club. That's more of an awareness community. We've talked about that, Adam, right? You and I.
Yeah, absolutely. That's beautiful shirt design.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, right? That's more on the brand side, and we leverage that into our philanthropic endeavors and some of the other stories we want to tell. So my marketing managers are when they're looking at their array, it is more demand oriented in that respect. So I don't know if that's the answer you're looking for, but I mean I would say it kind of serves both purposes in some ways.
Yeah, I took away two things there. One is the balance of efficiency versus quality. So creating a quality piece of content and then using it as efficiently as possible. And then the other thing is balancing spending between brand and demand generation, maybe equally.
I think you can't ignore that. We're all very much aware that there's a very small percentage of organizations that are in market, right, at any given time. And when they're in market, you better be there when they're looking, right? You want to be top of mind before they're even in market, if you can. That's the idea. And look, that's hard. We all talk about that in marketing, trying to justify that to our leadership, because it isn't something they can feel right away. But we're always working ahead in marketing, and that's just part of working ahead is creating that runway for things to occur. And you cannot ignore that, particularly in the time that we're in.
Absolutely. Stacy, how about you? What can you talk about in terms of budget for 2025 and where you're making changes in allocation?
Yeah, well, similar to Michael, we are not contracting on budget, and that is because we're in a product launch year. So when you've got a lot of go-to-market activities that require really all your channels to be engaged, full enablement, you tend to be able to hold on to a few more dollars. So we are launching several solutions in the AI space this year. So our budget is fairly healthy to support that. I think that where I've probably used platforms to scale where I don't have people are areas like product marketing. So that might sound funny. You're thinking product marketing is strategic, which is great. We do have a small team for that, but we add salespeople. And how do we scale all the sales enablement to the salespeople? So we're bringing on technology that helps really mimic the responsiveness of another product marketing manager in enabling the sales team with their job aids, their pitch decks, collateral, case studies, because half the time they're reaching out because they don't know where it is or what do we have. So to be able to put that again in their ecosystem inside of Salesforce. So while they're in an opportunity, they're about to send their ROI calculator or a proposal with pricing on it. How do you also send along a case study that shows what the ROI has been proven for accounts like them? So we're spending that money on platforms right now is to supplement where we don't have the headcount and the people. But yeah, I would say the other thing we've probably increased is domain expertise. So gone are the days where being a marketing generalist is the setup that most B2B marketing companies can get away with. So where we need expertise in domains like SEO and paid media, similar to what Michael said, we want to invest more in there because we need both brand and lead gen to come out of paid media, but we want to bring in an expert who knows how to optimize the platforms across things like LinkedIn and YouTube and Google and other publisher sites. So those are the areas where we've leaned more for agency or contractor or expertise outside of our company, is some of those niche domains inside of particularly digital marketing.
Understood. Okay. Issue number 5. And I don't think this is going to be, I think it'd be surprising if this didn't make it. It's leveraging technology and especially AI. So we conducted a survey a few months back on AI and the way that health tech marketers are using it in marketing. And the takeaway is this kind of conflict, which is as a technology priority across the community, adopting AI at scale is the number one priority. However, where most marketers seem to be is using it personally, experimenting with it, but very few are using AI applications in a meaningful way across their organization. It's not become operationalized. Michael, you were talking earlier on, and you were talking about how some of the platforms that you're using have an AI component to them. So let's hear about that. And then, maybe what are some of the other AI tools that you're looking at?
Well, I heard an analogy a while back, and I wish I could attribute it to who said it. So I can't take credit for it myself. But, if you think about probably 150 years ago, would you have hired a vice president of electricity? And that, and the analogy was, AI, everybody's AI. Like electricity, I think it's going to find its way to us. And we're already starting to see that implementation in the tools and the tech stack that we use. What is your use case? Are you looking are you looking for, data enrichment, buyer intent, buyer journeys, operationalizing workflows, analytics? So, I think to me, it comes down to, again, what is your use case? What are you trying to achieve? And then you look to see, what's available either off the shelf, or if you have to go and use another tool, then that's what you do to get to the result that you're looking for. So to go out in search of AI by itself is probably not productive in as much as you want to know what you're trying to get to. For us, I see it right now as a, again, I would say we're on the beginning curve of that adoption. For us, it's more about content iteration, trying to come up with, different ways to say things, different ways to polish what we've got. We write in technical topics in health tech. And so, you can't just go to ChatGPT and say, give me an article about this, right? I mean, it's probably not going to work, and it's not going to be authentic either. So, you really want to be cautious about how you use that, because context really matters. And technical facts matter as well. But we use tools like that. We're looking at HubSpot. I think they have Breeze, and there's some buyer intent information and other things that they're kind of bringing into that platform. We haven't fully adopted that yet, but that's something that we're looking at and experimenting with, because again, it's just easier to fold in those applications and grow on your current tech stack than to say, let's just go ahead and bring in some more things that we have to manage and work with. So I think we're going to get there. I think we're going to see more of it play out. And I do think it will help us scale because teams are just not going to get that much bigger. They're going to cap out at a certain point. And I see in our organization, and rightfully so, we hire many more account managers, many more implementation managers, many more product developers, because that's where we have to grow to service our customers and grow our product. They're just not going to triple the size of the marketing team, right? It's just reality, and I get that. So we have to find a way to use these tools to get better and scale as we grow.
Thank you. Stacy, how about in your organization?
I agree with Michael. Content, when we're using, right now we're using Jasper, we're using Capsule. These are, best of breed AI tools for what they do, which is content creation, video creation. And I'll be honest, to be able to use a tool that can enable motion graphics and, a lot of AI enabled bells and whistles for video. I mean, you all remember the days of it's $5,000 per finished minute of video when you work with a production house. So to be able to, both on a cost basis and a time basis, produce more video, short form video, the chunkable content that we always talk about, that's been a game changer for us in terms of having any video assets to use at all. Similar to what Michael said too, is you use AI to create content, but make sure you're creating evergreen content so that you can use it in a million places and it doesn't grow stale, or it's not overly connected to and promotional of your product, because you'll have limited use cases then to be able to use it. And to be able to develop thought leadership when you don't have a person. You know, sometimes we don't have those leaders on our bench who give points of view about topics we'd like to be affiliated with, and be able to use AI to generate some thought leadership, even if you're just aggregating research that's out there and giving a top line point of view on it. So that's been really helpful on the content side. I do agree with Michael. We've looked to our current vendors first, more on the demand gen side, to see what are they launching as part of the AI roadmap. So we use Salesforce. We're now adopting some things that Einstein is doing inside of Salesforce in terms of AI workflows. But, you know, we've evaluated the vendors we have versus the best of breed vendor at certain things. And sometimes you're better off with the best of breed vendor. We're adopting this year an AI chatbot that serves as an SDR on our website. We saw from our CRM some alternatives to that, where it was sort of homegrown, but it wasn't as robust, to be honest, as when you have a company that's what they do. That's their bread and butter. So I just caution folks that, you know, you can fall into the pattern of just saying, sure, we'll adopt all the AI features in all of our existing stack. But I encourage you to look outside, because sometimes that there's a best of breed vendor out there that they've built this really with that use case in mind, not just as an add-on, and that can give you more results for the same amount of implementation time that you're going to need to adopt these technologies.
I want to summarize a lot of what we talked, because we've covered a lot of ground in the last 40 minutes. But I just want to summarize. So first issue was measuring marketing impact and ROI. So what I heard you guys say is, you know, as advice, because I think you guys are kind of on the cutting edge of it actually across the community, is take a full funnel approach to measurement and measure whatever you can around quality of pipeline and pipeline health. And then the other point was, don't underestimate the importance of measuring brand. And if you can't do some kind of a brand study, figure out a proxy like LinkedIn in followers, but get yourself off. I love get yourself off what Michael said, which is get yourself off the MQL hamster wheel. The second priority was around aligning sales and marketing. And you guys are both in the sort of the one team, one dream model, sort of the new GTM go to market model, where you've got a chief commercial officer who you report into. I don't think that's true necessarily across all the community. But I think the thing which was I was so happy to hear is that it's working well. It's not the kind of traditional model where when sales reports, marketing reports to sales, and basically sales job is to answer the question, where are the leads? It's a much more sophisticated, integrated model. The third issue is around adapting to the evolving buyer behavior. And what your advice was actually, you know, not just adapt to buyer behavior, but adapt focus on buyer groups and make sure that you really understand how these buyer groups are structured, who the personas are. Can you map them in an org chart, and then really figure out who the champion is and provide the champion with the tools to enable them to be your best salespeople within the organization. The fourth topic was around navigating budget constraints. Now, it sounds like you guys are both in fortunate position of being in companies that are growing really well, but you had some really good advice, I think, around, you know, balancing efficiency and quality. So take one really great piece of content, use it as efficiently as possible. And then also in your experimentation, and if you've got additional dollars to spend, balance that between both brand and demand generation. The last point was around leveraging technology and AI. And so start with, what's the use case that you're trying to solve for. So there's an AI solution out there for everything. It's a bit like what we used to say when, the question that came out in the 2010s was, is there an app for this? Is there an AI for this? And the answer is, yeah, there's an AI for this. And so start with a use case that you're trying to solve. I think that the thing that I thought the advice that you both gave around, start with the platforms that you have in place. What are the tools that they have? How are they adopting AI? And start with that, because it's maybe the best place to start. But if you're not satisfied with that, that's when you really want to go outside and look at maybe some of the best of breed solutions that are focused on specific niches, like, for example, enabling sales enablement or intent data, those kinds of things. So I thought there's some great advice across those 5 issues. And I want to thank you for that. So I'd love to, just give closing thoughts. If we could close with, one piece of advice for the listeners out there who are, like yourselves, health tech marketing people who are dealing with all these issues. Stacy, you want to go first?
Sure. I think, you talk about budgets, marketing budgets tend to be under fire every year. The ROI piece is exactly tethered to, should we continue to fund marketing as a business driver of the organization? I just encourage folks who are listening, if you own a budget, don't be afraid and actually proactively put in front of your CFO and your CEO and your commercial leaders what you're doing, but also what have you stopped doing? Where have you reallocated? Make sure they understand the storyline of your spend and they don't view you as just a cost center, but you're a cost center that's constantly adapting, and you're explaining to them, like, we're not afraid to stop doing things. So what I do when I present the budget is a keep, start, and stop overview, so that they know it's not just asking for additional dollars, where there's not a trade-off of getting rid of legacy tactics or things like that. So I really encourage marketing leaders proactively bring not just your marketing strategy, but what you are doing new, what you keep doing and why, but also what you'll stop doing and dispose with as it no longer serves your business goals.
That's a really great piece of practical advice. Michael?
I would just make sure you don't lose the basics. We're talking about lots of things. Being in marketing it's tough, a lot tougher than when we all started out, right? Print and, things like that. Don't lose the basics. Get your positioning right and get your story right, because in the sea of it all, that's what your buyers are looking for. They want to know who you are and what you're about. They want to know your story. And if you don't know yourself, which is, it's not that uncommon, particularly in growth companies where products are changing and priorities are changing. How could the market ever know? And then all of your tactics are not going to work, and they're going to look disjointed and odd. So, spend the time stepping back, making sure that you understand who you are and who you want to be, and reflect on whether or not you're communicating that effectively to the market, and then let that guide you as you cascade into all of these different tactical approaches that we're talking about.
That's a very wise piece of advice. I think we sort of touched on it earlier. I feel like what's happening is that brand and brand awareness is becoming important again. And I think that's because people are realizing that buyers make decisions really early on, and they're going to tend to be biased towards the companies where they are most familiar with them and feel like they are a more trusted brand. They're going to they're the ones that are going to make the cut from the get-go. So to your point, being really clear about your brand positioning, your product, your value proposition, and making sure that you're doing the work that your target market, your target list is aware of you, is fundamental. So that's both of you, I think, provided great advice, practical advice. Certainly given me something to think about. Michael and Stacy, thank you so much for taking the time with me today to do this. I'm so excited to share this as our first episode of the year. So for anybody out there who's watching this episode, you can subscribe, you can listen to us. We're on all the podcasts whatever podcast app you use, you can find us. And there are tons of episodes. We've got any topic related to marketing, AI, ABM, buyer journey. It's all there. And equally, if you're watching this, you're listening to this, and you think, hey, are you guys on YouTube? Yep, there's a YouTube channel as well. So I want to thank Michael and Stacy again. I want to thank my partners at HIMSS for their support, and I want to thank you out there for listening. And so with that, I will bid everybody farewell.